Hi, Karu here. I'm drawing a ref sheet for one of my OCs named Evil-X. They're kind of the first OC I've ever made. I was about 10 when I made them, mostly due to trauma-related stuff at the time. And as the name implies, she's evil. She was essentially the embodiment of my pain and anger back then. Let me tell you, my mom did not like them. They were very violent and bad. And bad and violent. She was edgy. So, this edgy person lived in a place called the Death World, where all the bad people lived and died. A lot. Anyway, she was the most powerful tiger in the Death World. Back then, she either collected or just had all the negative stuff in the world within her. I can't really remember. But she had it somehow. And it didn't take her too long to get on top of the food chain. But it felt like enough time for me as a little kid. She was about 16 to 18 or something when she made it. And I'm only guessing here because I don't actually remember giving her an age either. Much like most of my earlier characters. I just knew she was older, and that seemed pretty old to me at the time. She also had magic. I think they had fire, dark, and a bit of telekinesis, which was pretty rare in the Death World, of course. They didn't really use their magic much though, mostly just fighting with good old teeth and claws and raw brutal strength. Once they were the most powerful, they were feared by all of the other Death World tigers. Everyone but her sister feared her. I'll talk about her in another video. An important thing to know is that the Death World is contained by a force field called the Infinity Force Field. I can't remember why I named it that, but it was named that, which contained all the Death World tigers so that they don't get out. Until they do. Imagine this. One day in the Death World, there were two tiger cubs born. And one of them decided they were going to rule this place because they liked the violence and soon loved the power. I believe when they were walking out of their den away from their mother, they saw some kind of killing, and my reasoning for that was that they imprinted on it. I don't know how they imprinted on killing, but they apparently imprinted on killing. And they're like, oh yeah, that's awesome. So they eventually grew up to kill a bunch of people until they're feared, including her father's. Since their mother found out that he was a rat for other tigers outside the force field, they called the good ones. And then some more other people. Until she had a whole army that was practically the whole Death World, and would obey her as a ruler. Then somehow finding out that they could dig straight down to find some new terrain they've never seen or even knew about before. She eventually decides to throw her sister out the bottom of their land to see what's down there. Then deciding to forget about her after a while of no response or sign that her sister was alive. And then with that same army, she says, and I'm paraphrasing here, teamwork makes the dream work. So they combine all their power to break the Infinity Force Field. Great, right? That's basically it in a nutshell. There's some important details like what Evil-X's real name was, because they gave her a backstory after a while of making her. I can't remember how long it took me to actually make like a past of her, but I think I drew a drawing, and I'm like, oh, I could give her a backstory. This was her in her past lifetime, so it stuck. It actually became even the source of my name, so that was good. Probably the only good thing that came out of that. Some more reasons, like the reason why she kind of wants out, finding out her best move called Chalice, which of course was some OP type of power that she had. Some weird culture they have, like the Death Ring, which is a ruined coliseum that I never explained how that got there. That they fight to the death in for tournaments or simple enjoyment. I think it was hosted like once a month as like a big tournament, and every other day it's just like the regular people using it. And going back to her throwing her sister to find out what's down there, that's also the part that weirdly connects to Earth and humans, because that's where they used to exist with us, just above in the sky on a cloud with the terrain. Anyway, once they decided to forget about it and break the force field and all, they were free. And all of them were now able to step outside the confines that imprisoned them there for like millennia. They started a war with Cloudsville, a place that existed also on a large cloud right next to them, where the good ones lived. And that's where it basically ends. I never finished what happened. I think there was a war, and I didn't even decide whether Evil-X won or she was defeated by her rival, which would also be mentioned in a future video. Can I stop for a moment and tell you guys how much it's taken me to talk about this whole mess? I mean, I know some dumb 10-year-old version of me made this, but man, this is horrible. I'm not saying that's great by any means now, but I'm having a hard time conceptualizing that I did some of the really cringy stuff here. It was just like a whole big edgy mess. Oh well. Here I am now, talking about it. Oh god. I'm also trying to figure out how to like explain their entire story a bit without maybe like info dumping. Especially because most of the information is now going to be outdated the more I work on this story. So, anyway, like I said, that whole thing was the older version, so it's changed quite a bit since then, even changing the fabric of reality they abided in. Right now, I'm just trying to come out with a design for her that I like, or that I feel matches my vision of her. And at the time, I liked the design. I felt like it fit her, but now I'm not too sure about it. I do just want a way to draw her for the time being. Stripes in the universe mean certain things correlating with their whole existences and personalities. So the more I change and work on the actual story, the more I'm going to have to change the design to match it to her past, present, and future. Well, her and the rest of the characters in the story. But I do have the next batch of characters more figured out, since they actually come from another source that developed their personalities and lore a whole lot more for a couple of years. Almost a whole decade. I got them all from a story that me and my sister created and is still creating. But I put them in a universe where none of my sister's characters were, just so I could also work on the story and making that story without needing her there. Which, now that I think about it, kind of sounds a little bit mean. But I really wanted to work on it, and it was kind of hard working on it with her because we come out with a lot of ideas, and so we don't get a lot of it done. Putting them in a little story that I have condenses all of that, so I just have to be the one figuring it all out. Which I think works a little bit better for me. It's not particularly as fun sometimes, you know, having to work with the whole thing. But I do think it streamlines it a lot better, so I could actually put out a story. Especially because I'm actually thinking of an ending for this one, and since we're still working on the story consistently, almost daily, we're creating the story. We're not really, like, making it to put it out in public, though. So I want the story out in public. I think it might be fun. You know, just enjoying my characters and you guys understanding their backstories and stuff. I think it'd be cool. I'll tell you about the newer version of Elixis in a later video, since it's still considerably a pretty big story, I think. Not a good one by any means, but a big one. For now, I'm going to lay out the first 3 characters, and this was the first out of the 3, within the first batch. So if you're willing to stick around for this whole cringy mess, I'll see you next time.